Julian Blake checked his watch for the 7th time in 20 minutes. The crystal chandelier above cast bright white light across the white tablecloth, making the empty chair across from him seem even more obvious. Around him, couples laughed over wine and pasta, their conversations blending into a comfortable hum. He sat alone at a table set for two in the most expensive restaurant in the city, wearing his best blue suit, waiting for a woman who apparently had no intention of showing up. His assistant, Andre Cooper, had warned him about blind dates. "They're unpredictable, boss," he'd said that morning, adjusting his burgundy tie. "Maybe try one of those dating apps instead." But Julian's college friend had insisted. "Tasha swears her friend Rochelle is perfect for you," his buddy had promised over the phone. "She's real, Julian. Not interested in your money. Works 2 jobs, raises her daughter alone, and she's kind. That's what you've been looking for, right? Someone genuine." So here he sat, genuine, and genuinely stood up. The waiter had passed by 3 times, each time with a more sympathetic expression. Julian was about to call for the check, ready to accept that authentic connection might just not be in the cards for him, when he heard a small voice. "Excuse me, sir. Are you Julian?" He looked down. A little girl stood beside his table, maybe 6 years old, with her hair styled in 2 puffs decorated with bright green ribbons that matched her green dress. She had large brown eyes that sparkled with determination and just a hint of nervousness. She clutched a small yellow purse in both hands. "I am," Julian said, surprised. He glanced around the restaurant, looking for an adult who might be with her. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The little girl shook her head. "I'm not lost. I'm Amara. My mommy's name is Rochelle Davis. She was supposed to meet you here for dinner tonight." Julian's eyebrows rose. "Is she here? Is she okay?" "She's at home," Amara said. She looked down at her shiny black shoes, then back up at him with those earnest eyes. "She didn't want to come. She said she's too tired and too busy and that blind dates are silly. But I know that's not the real reason." "What's the real reason?" Julian asked gently, now completely invested in this strange turn of events. Amara climbed onto the chair across from him without being invited. She set her yellow purse on the table and folded her small hands like she'd seen adults do in important meetings. "She's scared. She works really hard every day. She works at the diner in the morning and does bookkeeping stuff on her computer at night. She's always tired. But she's also really lonely. I hear her sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep." Julian felt something twist in his chest. This child had traveled across the city alone to plead her mother's case to a stranger. "Amara, does your mother know you're here?" "No," Amara admitted. "Mrs. Patterson next door thinks I'm in my room doing homework. I climbed out my window. I walked to the bus stop like Mommy taught me. I remembered the address Miss Tasha told her. I had to come. Someone has to help Mommy be happy again. She does everything for me. She deserves good things." "You took a bus across the city by yourself?" Julian felt alarm rising in his throat. This brave, foolish child could have been hurt. "I was very careful," Amara assured him. "I stayed where the lights were bright. I didn't talk to strangers except the nice bus driver and the doorman outside who showed me how to get in here. And you're not really a stranger because Miss Tasha said you're a good man. She said you're rich but not mean. She said you wanted to meet someone who would like you for who you are, not what you have." Julian sat back in his chair, completely stunned. In his 32 years running a tech company worth billions, making decisions that affected thousands of employees, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. A 6-year-old girl had done what her mother couldn't. She'd shown up, taken a risk, and asked for help. Not for herself, but for someone she loved. "Your mother is going to be very worried when she finds out you're gone," Julian said carefully. "I know," Amara said, and now her small voice wavered just a little. "But I had to do something. Mommy always says no when people try to help. Miss Tasha got her this date because she wanted Mommy to have fun for once. But Mommy got scared and said no. I couldn't let her say no. Not when someone nice wanted to meet her. Not when she cries at night because she's so lonely." Julian felt his heart, the one he'd protected behind walls of wealth and caution for so many years, crack wide open. Here was a child willing to risk punishment, willing to be brave in a way most adults never could be, all because she loved her mother and wanted her to be happy. This wasn't manipulation or a con. This was pure love in its most raw form. "Tell me about your mom," Julian said softly. Amara's whole face brightened. "She's the best mommy in the whole world. She makes me breakfast every morning even when she's tired. She helps me with homework even though she worked all day. She reads me stories every night. She never gets mad when I make mistakes. She just helps me learn better. And she has the prettiest smile, but she doesn't smile enough anymore. What happened to your dad? Julian asked, treading carefully. He left when I was a baby, Amara said matter-of-factly. Mommy says some people aren't ready to be parents. She says it's not my fault. She says she has enough love for both of them. And she does. But I think she needs someone to love her back the same way. Someone who sees how special she is. The waiter approached, clearly confused by the presence of an unaccompanied child at the table. Julian waved him back with a gentle gesture. This conversation was too important to interrupt. Amara, I need to call your mother, Julian said. She's probably very scared right now. Can you give me her phone number? Amara rattled off the digits, which Julian quickly typed into his phone. But before he could press call, his phone rang. The number on the screen matched what Amara had just told him. Hello? Julian answered. Is my daughter there? A woman's voice came through, breathless and panicked and angry and terrified all at once. Mrs. Patterson just told me Amara's gone. Tasha told me about the restaurant. Please tell me she's there. Please tell me my baby is safe. She's here, Julian said quickly. She's safe. She's sitting right across from me. We've been talking. He heard a sob of relief on the other end. Oh, thank God. I'm on my way. I'm so sorry. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Please just keep her there. Keep her safe. We'll be here, Julian promised. And Rochelle? Drive carefully. She's fine. We'll wait. He ended the call and looked at Amara, who was watching him with those big, hopeful eyes. Your mom is on her way. She's very scared and very worried. Is she mad? Amara asked in a small voice. Probably, Julian admitted. But mostly she's scared. That's what love does. It makes you scared when the people you care about are in danger. You took a big risk tonight, Amara. You could have gotten hurt. But I didn't, Amara pointed out. And now you'll meet Mommy. You'll see how wonderful she is. And maybe if you like her, she won't be so lonely anymore. Julian reached across the table and gently took the child's small hand in his. I already know something important about your mother. What's that? Amara asked. She raised an incredibly brave, loving little girl. That tells me everything I need to know about what kind of person she is. For the first time since she'd arrived, Amara smiled, truly smiled. It was the kind of smile that held hope and love and the simple faith that good things could happen if you were just brave enough to try. Julian didn't know it yet, but his entire life was about to change. The empty chair wouldn't stay empty much longer. And when Rochelle Davis walked through that restaurant door, everything he'd been searching for would finally make sense. Have you ever watched someone you love struggle alone, wishing you could help but not knowing how? Amara's courage to help her mother find happiness might just inspire you to take a chance on love too. Subscribe to hear what happens when Rochelle finally meets Julian and comment below. Would you have done what Amara did? Rochelle Davis burst through the apartment door, her red cardigan flying behind her as she rushed to Amara's bedroom. The room was empty. The window was open. Her daughter's yellow purse was gone. No, 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 Rochelle whispered, gripping the window frame. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her chest. She'd only been gone 20 minutes, running down to the corner store for milk. 20 minutes. How had everything gone so wrong in 20 minutes? Mrs. Patterson stood in the doorway, wringing her weathered hands. The elderly woman had tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Rochelle. I was watching TV in my apartment. I heard your door close and thought you'd come home early. When I came over to check, she was gone. The window was open. Rochelle pulled her phone from her pocket with shaking hands. She'd already called Tasha, who'd given her the restaurant address. Now she just had to get there, had to see her baby, had to know she was safe. She grabbed her keys from the counter. Mrs. Patterson, I have to go. If she comes back here, I'll call you immediately, the older woman promised. Go. Bring that sweet girl home. Rochelle ran down the 3 flights of stairs, not bothering with the elevator. Her mind raced with terrible possibilities. Amara was smart, yes. Responsible for her age, absolutely. But she was still just 6 years old. 6. Anything could have happened. Someone could have taken her. She could have gotten lost. She could have been hurt. The bus. Tasha said Amara knew how to take the bus. Rochelle had taught her daughter the routes, thinking it was good to be prepared for emergencies. She never imagined Amara would use that knowledge to sneak across the city alone. As Rochelle started her old sedan, a car she'd bought used 5 years ago and maintained with pure determination and prayer, she thought about how this entire mess had started. The blind date. Tasha had been so excited. Girl, you need this, Tasha had said 3 days ago, sitting in Rochelle's tiny kitchen while Amara did homework at the table. When was the last time you went on a date? When was the last time you did something just for you? I don't have time for dates, Rochelle had replied, stirring pasta on the stove. I have work. I have Amara. I have bills. Dating isn't a priority. Making yourself happy should be a priority, Tasha insisted. This guy, Julian Blake, he's one of my cousin's college friends. He's successful, yeah, but my cousin says he's genuinely kind. He's looking for someone real. Someone who won't just see dollar signs. I told him about you. You did what? Rochelle had spun around, wooden spoon in hand. I showed him your picture from our girls' night last month. The one where you're actually smiling. He said you looked beautiful. He asked me to set up a dinner. Come on, Rochelle. Just one date. What's the worst that could happen? Rochelle had said no. She'd said it firmly. She'd said it with finality. Rich men didn't date struggling single mothers for the right reasons. They dated them because they wanted to feel charitable. They dated them to feel like saviors. And Rochelle Davis didn't need saving. She needed to save herself. But apparently her daughter disagreed. Rochelle's hands tightened on the steering wheel as she drove through the bright city streets. She'd worked so hard to give Amara a good life. 2 jobs, long hours, constant exhaustion. She did it all willingly, gladly. But somewhere along the way she'd forgotten that Amara was watching. Her daughter saw the tired eyes, heard the quiet moments of loneliness, noticed the absence of joy. Kids were supposed to worry about homework and cartoons and playground games. They weren't supposed to worry about whether their mothers were happy. They weren't supposed to take buses across the city to fix problems that weren't theirs to solve. The restaurant came into view, all bright lights and elegant architecture. Rochelle pulled into the parking lot, abandoned her car in the first space she found and ran toward the entrance. The doorman, an older gentleman in a burgundy uniform, opened the door with a knowing look. Your daughter is inside, ma'am. Table by the window. She's safe. Rochelle wanted to hug him and scream at him all at once. How had he let a 6-year-old walk in alone? But she could dissect that later. Right now she just needed to see Amara. Needed to hold her. Needed to know her baby was truly okay. She rushed through the restaurant, ignoring the stares of well-dressed diners. Her jeans and red cardigan were completely out of place among the evening gowns and suits. She didn't care. She just needed. There. By the window. Amara sat at a table with a man in a blue suit. They were talking quietly and her daughter was smiling. Actually smiling. Not the scared smile of a child in trouble, but a genuine, happy smile. The man saw Rochelle first. He stood, tall and handsome with kind eyes, and gently touched Amara's shoulder. Amara turned, saw her mother, and her smile faltered. Mommy? Rochelle reached the table and immediately pulled her daughter into her arms, hugging her so tightly she worried she might break her. Don't you ever do that again. Do you understand me? I was so scared. I'm sorry, Mommy, Amara whispered against her shoulder. I'm sorry. I just wanted to help. Rochelle pulled back, cupping her daughter's face in her hands. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to yell. But all she felt was overwhelming relief and love so intense it hurt. You can't run away. You can't put yourself in danger. What if something had happened to you? What would I do? I was careful, Amara said softly. I promise. Careful isn't enough, Rochelle said, tears streaming down her face now. You're 6 years old, baby. The world is big and sometimes dangerous. You could have been hurt. But I wasn't, Amara said, touching her mother's wet cheek. And now you're here. And so is Julian. You can meet him now like you were supposed to. Rochelle suddenly remembered where she was. She looked up at the man standing politely beside the table, giving them space but staying close enough to help if needed. This was Julian Blake, the billionaire. The blind date she'd refused. I'm so sorry, Rochelle said, standing but keeping one hand on Amara's shoulder. I'm so sorry. I had no idea she would do this. I told her no. I told her I wasn't going to come. Please sit, Julian said gently. He gestured to the empty chair. You've had a terrible scare. Let me order you some water. We can figure this out together. Rochelle wanted to refuse. Wanted to grab Amara and leave and pretend this entire mortifying night had never happened. But her daughter's hand caught hers, squeezing tight. When Rochelle looked down, Amara's eyes pleaded with her. Not for forgiveness but for a chance. A chance for something good. A chance for happiness. And somehow, looking at this stranger who'd kept her daughter safe, who'd called her immediately, who now offered simple kindness with no strings attached, Rochelle found herself sitting down. Julian signaled the waiter, who arrived with menus and a concerned expression. Water for the lady, please. And perhaps some warm bread. Right away, sir, the waiter said, disappearing quickly. Rochelle sat stiffly in her chair, still holding Amara's hand. She couldn't quite process what was happening. One moment she'd been home, planning a quiet evening. The next, her daughter had orchestrated a meeting with a man Rochelle had deliberately avoided. The fear was fading, replaced now by embarrassment so profound she wanted to sink through the floor. I really am sorry, Rochelle said again. I don't even know what to say. She's never done anything like this before. She loves you very much, Julian said simply. He'd settled back into his chair, his blue suit crisp and his posture relaxed. We had quite a conversation while we waited for you. Amara looked between them, her expression hopeful. I told him about your jobs and how hard you work and how you make me pancakes even when you're tired. Amara, Rochelle said softly, mortification washing over her in waves. Those are private things. But he needs to know how wonderful you are, Amara insisted. How else will he understand? Julian's expression softened. For what it's worth, I'm impressed. Raising a child alone while working 2 jobs takes incredible strength. And she clearly adores you, which tells me you're doing everything right. The waiter returned with water and a basket of warm, fragrant bread. Rochelle took the glass gratefully, drinking deeply. Her throat felt dry, her hands still shaking slightly. She set the glass down and looked at Julian properly for the first time. He had kind eyes. That was the first thing she noticed. Not his expensive suit or his obviously well-groomed appearance, but the genuine warmth in his expression. He wasn't looking at her with pity or condescension. He looked curious, interested, and patient. Tasha told me you refused the date, Julian said. I was disappointed, but I understood. Blind dates can be awkward. I almost didn't come myself. Why did you? Rochelle asked before she could stop herself. Julian smiled. Honestly? I'm tired of dating women who want my bank account more than they want me. My assistant jokes that I should wear a disguise to meet people. Maybe work as a barista and see who talks to me then. When my friend said Tasha knew someone who wouldn't care about money, who might actually want to know the real me, I thought it was worth a shot. And instead you got my daughter showing up alone, Rochelle said, shaking her head. Probably not what you hoped for. Actually, Julian said, leaning forward slightly, meeting Amara first might have been perfect. She told me everything I needed to know about you in the first 5 minutes. She told me you're kind and hardworking and that you read to her every night. She told me you make her feel loved even when things are hard. Those aren't things you can fake or hide. That's who you really are. Rochelle felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back, refusing to cry twice in one night in a fancy restaurant. She shouldn't have come here. She shouldn't have put herself at risk like that. I know, Julian agreed. But she did. And now you're here. So maybe, instead of focusing on how we got to this moment, we could just see where the moment goes. Rochelle looked at her daughter, who was watching her with those pleading eyes. Then she looked at Julian, this stranger who'd somehow become less strange in the past few minutes. Every instinct told her to leave, to protect herself, to avoid the risk of disappointment or pity or all the complicated things that came with accepting kindness from people who had more than she did. But Amara's words echoed in her mind. Her daughter had been brave tonight. Foolishly, dangerously brave, but brave nonetheless. Could Rochelle be brave too? Could she sit here and have dinner with this man who seemed genuinely kind? Could she accept this unexpected gift her daughter had given her? Okay, Rochelle heard herself say. We can stay for dinner. Amara's face lit up like sunshine. Really, Mommy? Really, Rochelle confirmed. She looked at Julian. But we need to establish something right now. I don't need charity. I don't need saving. I'm doing fine on my own. If that's what this is. It's not, Julian interrupted gently. This is just dinner. 2 adults getting to know each other while a very determined 6-year-old supervises. No expectations. No obligations. Just food and conversation. Is that acceptable? Rochelle found herself nodding. That's acceptable. The waiter returned and Julian encouraged them to order whatever they wanted. Rochelle started to look at the prices, then forced herself to stop. Julian had invited them. He could afford it. And refusing would just make things awkward. She ordered pasta. Amara ordered chicken fingers, which made Julian smile. I was expecting you to order something more sophisticated, he teased the little girl gently. I'm 6, Amara replied matter-of-factly. Chicken fingers are perfect when you're 6. Julian laughed, a real laugh that made his whole face change. You're absolutely right. I apologize for questioning your culinary wisdom. As they waited for food, conversation began to flow more naturally. Julian asked Amara about school, and she told him about her teacher Mrs. Chen and her best friend Lila. He asked Rochelle about her work, and she found herself talking about the diner where she waitressed and the small businesses she did bookkeeping for on the side. I like numbers, Rochelle admitted. They make sense. They follow rules. When things feel chaotic, I can look at a spreadsheet and everything becomes clear. I understand that completely, Julian said. I started my company because I wanted to create something that solved real problems. Something that made sense in a world that often doesn't. What does your company do? Rochelle asked. She realized she knew nothing about him beyond Billionaire, which felt like a cartoon description rather than a real understanding. We develop software for small businesses, Julian explained. Inventory management, customer tracking, financial forecasting. All the tools that big corporations take for granted, but made affordable and accessible for mom-and-pop shops. I wanted to help people like you, actually. People working hard to build something but who don't have huge budgets for fancy systems. Rochelle felt something shift inside her. This wasn't what she'd expected. She'd imagined tech billionaires dealt in cryptocurrencies or social media or things that felt distant from regular life. But Julian's work directly helped people she knew, people she worked with. That's really wonderful, she said, meaning it. Their food arrived, and for a while they just ate, the conversation continuing in comfortable spurts. Amara chatted happily about everything and nothing, her earlier fear completely forgotten. She was thrilled to have her mother and Julian together, thrilled that her risky plan had worked. Halfway through the meal, exhaustion caught up with her. The adrenaline that had fueled her journey across the city faded, and her eyes began to droop. She leaned against Rochelle's side, struggling to stay awake. Someone's tired, Rochelle murmured, stroking her daughter's hair. I'm not tired, Amara mumbled even as her eyes closed. Sure you're not, Rochelle said with a soft smile. Julian watched them, something unreadable in his expression. You're a good mother, he said quietly. I don't know if anyone's told you that recently, but you are. What you've built, just the two of you, it's remarkable. Rochelle felt her defenses trying to rise again, but she pushed them down. Thank you, she said simply. That means a lot. Can I ask you something? Julian said after a moment. Why did you say no to this date originally? Rochelle looked down at Amara, now fully asleep against her side. Because I'm scared, she admitted. Scared that someone might help out of pity. Scared that accepting kindness might mean owing something I can't repay. Scared that hoping for good things might just lead to disappointment. It's easier to handle everything alone than to risk needing someone who might leave. Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm scared too. Scared that anyone who gets close only wants what I can give them materially. Scared that I'll never find someone who sees me instead of my bank balance. Scared that being alone is just going to be my reality forever. So I guess we both have good reasons to be afraid. But being afraid doesn't make us happy, Rochelle said softly. No, Julian agreed. It really doesn't. They looked at each other across the table, over the sleeping child who'd brought them together. Something passed between them in that moment, something tentative but real. Understanding. Recognition. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, taking a risk on connection might be worth the fear. I'd like to see you again, Julian said. If you're willing. No pressure. I'd like to get to know you better. Really know you. Rochelle felt her heart beating faster. Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to protect herself, to keep her walls intact. But Amara had been brave tonight. Could she be brave too? I'd like that, Rochelle heard herself say. I'd like that very much. Julian smiled, and it was like the sun coming out after a storm. 3 days after the restaurant incident, Rochelle's phone rang while she was wiping down tables at the diner. Her shift was almost over, her feet ached, and she was looking forward to picking up Amara from Mrs. Patterson's apartment and collapsing on the couch for an hour before starting her evening bookkeeping work. The number wasn't one she recognized. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe to accept the call. Hello? Rochelle? It's Julian. Her heart did a strange little jump. They'd exchanged numbers before leaving the restaurant, but she hadn't expected him to actually call. Rich, successful men didn't usually follow up with tired single mothers who couldn't even make it to a date on their own. Hi, she said, tucking the phone between her ear and shoulder while she finished wiping a table. How are you? I'm good. Listen, I know this is short notice, but I have tickets to the aquarium tomorrow afternoon. I was supposed to go with my assistant's kids, but they came down with colds. I hate to waste them. Would you and Amara like to go? Rochelle opened her mouth to refuse automatically. She had work tomorrow. She had bills to review. She had laundry. She had 1,000 responsibilities that didn't include going to aquariums with men she barely knew. But then she heard Amara's voice in her head, heard her daughter saying, "Mommy never smiles enough anymore." She thought about the risk Amara had taken, the courage she'd shown. If a 6-year-old could be brave, surely a grown woman could accept an invitation to see some fish. "What time?" she asked. 2 o'clock? I could pick you up. "We'll meet you there," Rochelle countered. She wasn't ready to have him at her small apartment yet, wasn't ready for him to see exactly how modest her life was. "Perfect," Julian said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "See you tomorrow?" The next day, Rochelle stood outside the aquarium with Amara, who bounced excitedly in her green dress. Julian arrived right at 2, wearing jeans and a blue sweater instead of a suit. He looked more relaxed, younger somehow. More real. "Ready to see some fish?" he asked Amara with a grin. "Ready," Amara confirmed, already reaching for his hand with the easy trust of children who'd decided someone was safe. They spent 3 hours wandering through blue-lit hallways, watching jellyfish drift like ghosts and seahorses bob through artificial currents. Julian bought them all ice cream despite Rochelle's protests, and Amara declared it the best day ever when a stingray let her touch its smooth back in the touching pool. "You're good with kids," Rochelle observed as they watched Amara press her face against the glass of the shark tank. "I like kids," Julian replied. "They're honest. They don't pretend to be something they're not. They just are." "Is that why you never married?" Rochelle asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. "Sorry? That's too nosy." "It's fine," Julian assured her. "And yes, partly. I dated a woman for 2 years. She seemed perfect. Then I found out she'd been photographing my credit card statements and sending them to her friends. She liked the lifestyle more than she liked me. After that, I was more careful. Maybe too careful. I built walls that kept out the bad but also the good." "I understand that," Rochelle said quietly. "After Amara's father left, I decided I didn't need anyone. Didn't want anyone. It was safer to just focus on her and work. No complications. No disappointments." "But lonely," Julian observed. "Very lonely," Rochelle admitted. "I didn't realize how lonely until Amara risked everything to try to fix it." They watched Amara for a moment, their daughter pointing excitedly at a passing shark. Their daughter. The thought caught Rochelle off guard. She barely knew this man, but already she was thinking in terms of our instead of my. "Can I take you both to dinner again?" Julian asked. "Somewhere casual this time. Maybe pizza?" "Amara would love that," Rochelle said. Then more boldly, "I would too." Over the next few weeks they settled into a pattern. Julian would call or text suggesting outings that included Amara. They went to the park, to a children's museum, to a puppet show that made Amara giggle until she hiccuped. He never pushed for alone time with Rochelle, never made her feel like Amara was an obstacle to overcome. Instead, he included her daughter in everything, treating her like the important person she was. One evening, after Julian had dropped them home following dinner at a pizza place where Amara had eaten her weight in breadsticks, Rochelle's phone rang. "I have a proposition for you," Julian said without preamble. Rochelle's stomach tightened. Here it was. The moment when he'd offer something she couldn't accept, when the fairy tale would crumble. "What kind of proposition?" "My accountant is retiring. She's been with me since I started the company, and she's ready to enjoy her golden years. I need someone who understands numbers, who's detail-oriented, and who I can trust. I immediately thought of you." "Julian?" Rochelle started, ready to refuse. "Before you say no, hear me out," he interrupted. "This is a real job offer. My company needs an accountant. You have bookkeeping experience and a head for numbers. The salary is $70,000 a year with full benefits. Normal business hours, 9 to 5. Weekends off. You'd be working with my financial team, keeping the books straight, making sure we're compliant with all regulations. It's not charity, Rochelle. It's me needing someone good and you being qualified. $70,000. Rochelle made less than $30,000 between her 2 current jobs. $70,000 would mean no more double shifts. No more falling asleep over her laptop at midnight. No more choosing between groceries and Amara's school supplies. It would mean breathing room. It would mean stability. But accepting felt like admitting she needed help. "I know what you're thinking," Julian said gently. "You're thinking this is pity or charity or me trying to fix your problems. But Rochelle, I'm a businessman. I wouldn't offer you a position this important if I didn't believe you could excel at it. I've seen how your mind works. I've watched you calculate tips in your head and remember every detail of conversations. You're exactly what I need. So please don't refuse out of pride. Accept because it's a good opportunity for both of us. Rochelle closed her eyes. Amara was asleep in the next room, safe and happy because her mother worked herself to exhaustion every single day. What message would she be sending if she refused help when it was offered genuinely? What lesson would Amara learn if Rochelle chose struggle over opportunity? When would I start? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. She could hear the smile in Julian's voice. How about 2 weeks? That gives you time to give proper notice at your current jobs. Okay, Rochelle said. Then stronger, yes, thank you. I accept. Thank you, Julian replied. You have no idea how much stress you just took off my plate. Andre's been trying to do the books and he's terrible at it. Last week he categorized a $1,000 office supply order as entertainment. Rochelle laughed, a real laugh that felt good in her chest. I'll fix that. I know you will, Julian said warmly. Rochelle? I'm really glad Amara dragged you to that restaurant. So am I, Rochelle admitted. So am I. After they hung up, Rochelle sat in her tiny living room and cried. Not tears of sadness or frustration, but tears of relief and gratitude and hope. For the first time in 6 years, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Better than okay. Good. Amara appeared in her doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Mommy? Why are you crying? Happy tears, baby, Rochelle said, opening her arms. Amara climbed into her lap, still warm from bed. Sometimes people cry when they're happy. Did something good happen? Amara asked. Something wonderful happened, Rochelle confirmed. Julian offered me a new job. A really good job with better hours and better pay. I said yes. Amara's sleepy face split into a huge grin. See? I told you he was nice. I told you good things would happen. You did, Rochelle agreed, holding her daughter close. You were right, brave girl. You were absolutely right. Rochelle's first day at Blake Technologies felt surreal. The office was located in a modern building downtown, all glass and bright natural light. Andre Cooper met her in the lobby, wearing a maroon shirt and a welcoming smile. You must be Rochelle, he said, extending his hand. I'm Andre, Julian's assistant and the world's worst temporary accountant. You're going to find so many mistakes in the books. I apologize in advance. Rochelle shook his hand, relaxing slightly. I'm sure it's not that bad. Oh, it's that bad, Andre assured her cheerfully. Come on, I'll show you your office. Her office. Rochelle had never had an office before. She'd done bookkeeping at her kitchen table, balanced diner receipts while standing at a computer in a back closet. But here, Andre led her to a corner room with huge windows overlooking the city. There was a desk with a new computer, comfortable chairs, and a small plant on the windowsill. Julian wanted you to have good light, Andre explained. He said you mentioned liking to see the sky while you work. Rochelle felt tears prick her eyes. She'd mentioned that once during one of their dinners. Just an offhand comment about how the diner basement office had no windows. Julian had remembered. It's perfect, she managed to say. Andre showed her around the rest of the office, introducing her to the small team. Everyone was friendly, welcoming, and seemed genuinely happy to have a proper accountant on staff. Julian appeared around 10, carrying coffee. Thought you might need this, he said, offering her a cup. First days are always overwhelming. Thank you, Rochelle said, accepting the coffee gratefully. She'd been up since 5, getting Amara ready for school and preparing herself for this new chapter. The caffeine was a blessing. If you need anything, just ask, Julian said. And don't let Andre's panic about his mistakes stress you out. We'll fix everything together. I heard that, Andre called from across the room. Julian grinned. You were meant to. Over the following weeks, Rochelle settled into her new role. The work was challenging but satisfying. She untangled Andre's well-meaning but chaotic attempts at accounting, organized the financial records, and set up new systems to keep everything running smoothly. Julian was impressed with her efficiency and told her so often. The best part was the schedule. She worked 9 to 5 exactly. No more double shifts. No more working until midnight. She picked Amara up from school every day, helped with homework, made dinner without feeling exhausted. They had time together, real quality time, and Amara bloomed under the attention. Julian continued to be part of their lives but differently now. He'd invite them for Sunday brunch or weekend outings. He taught Amara to play chess, patiently explaining strategy while she giggled at his exaggerated thinking faces. He helped Rochelle set up a savings account for Amara's future education, showing her investment strategies without ever making her feel ignorant. But more than that, he just showed up. When Rochelle's car broke down, he had it towed and fixed without being asked. When Amara got sick with flu, he dropped off soup and medicine at their door. When Rochelle mentioned missing her mother, who'd passed away 5 years earlier, he listened without trying to fix anything, just offering presence and understanding. "You don't have to do all this," Rochelle said one Sunday afternoon. They were at a park, watching Amara climb on the playground equipment. "The job is already so much. You don't have to keep helping." "I'm not doing it because I have to," Julian said quietly. "I'm doing it because I want to. Because you've become important to me, Rochelle. Both of you. Is that okay?" Rochelle looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd waited in an empty restaurant for a date that never showed. This man who'd kept her daughter safe and called her immediately. This man who'd seen her struggling and offered opportunity, not pity. This man who showed up, consistently and kindly, asking nothing in return. "It's more than okay," she said softly. "You've become important to us too." Julian reached over and took her hand, just holding it gently. It was the first physically intimate gesture between them, and it felt monumental. Rochelle didn't pull away. Instead, she laced her fingers through his, accepting the connection, accepting the possibility of more. "Mommy," Amara called from the slide. "Julian. Watch me." They both turned to watch as she slid down, landing in a laughing heap at the bottom. She jumped up and ran to them, throwing herself into both their laps simultaneously. "Did you see? Did you see how fast I went?" "We saw," Rochelle assured her, kissing the top of her head. "You were amazing," Julian added, ruffling her hair affectionately. Amara looked between them, noticing their joined hands. Her smile could have lit the entire city. "You're holding hands?" she observed with obvious delight. "We are," Rochelle confirmed. "That means you like each other," Amara said matter-of-factly. "That's good. I like both of you. We should all like each other." "That's an excellent philosophy," Julian said seriously. "I think we should adopt it officially." Later that evening, after Julian had dropped them home with promises to see them soon, Amara helped Rochelle make dinner. They worked together in the kitchen, moving around each other with practiced ease. Amara chattered about her day at school, about her friends, about everything and nothing. "Mommy," she said suddenly, stopping in the middle of setting the table. "Are you happy now?" Rochelle paused, considering the question seriously. Was she happy? For so long, happiness had seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. Survival, responsibility, duty, those were her focus. But now, looking at her daughter's hopeful face, thinking about her new job and the way Julian made her feel seen and valued, she realized something important. "Yes, baby," she said honestly. "I really am happy now." "Good," Amara said, nodding with satisfaction. "That's what I wanted. When I went to that restaurant, that's all I wanted. For you to be happy." "That was a very brave thing you did," Rochelle said, crouching down to her daughter's level. "But also very dangerous. You understand that, right? You can't do things like that again." "I know," Amara said seriously. "But I'm glad I did it once. Because now we have Julian, and you're smiling again, and everything is better." Rochelle pulled her daughter into a tight hug. "You have the biggest, bravest heart. And yes, everything is better. So much better." That night, after Amara was asleep, Rochelle stood by her window, looking out at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "Thank you for today. For letting me be part of your life. Sweet dreams." Rochelle smiled and typed back. "Thank you for being someone worth letting in. Sweet dreams." She set her phone down and went to bed feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Not just contentment or relief, but genuine, pure happiness. The walls she'd built so carefully were coming down, brick by brick, and instead of feeling vulnerable, she felt free. 3 months into her job at Blake Technologies, Rochelle received her first performance review. Julian scheduled it formally, which made her nervous despite their personal relationship. She sat in his office, hands folded in her lap, while he reviewed papers on his desk. "So," Julian began, looking up with a serious expression. "We need to talk about your performance." Rochelle's heart sank. Had she made mistakes? Had accepting this job been a terrible error? Then Julian's serious face cracked into a smile. "You're incredible. The financial systems you've implemented are running smoother than they have in 5 years. The team loves working with you. You've saved the company actual money through your efficiency. Rochelle, you're not just meeting expectations. You're exceeding them by miles." Relief and pride flooded through her. "Really? Really?" Julian confirmed. He slid a paper across his desk. "Which is why I'm giving you a raise. And adding profit sharing to your benefits package. You're not just an employee, Rochelle. You're an asset to this company. Rochelle looked at the numbers on the paper and felt dizzy. The raise brought her salary to $85,000. With profit sharing, she'd be making more in 1 year than she'd made in 3 at her previous jobs combined. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say you'll keep doing what you're doing, Julian replied. Say you'll keep making this company better. That's all I ask. I can do that, Rochelle promised. I know you can, Julian said warmly. That's why I'm trusting you with this. Trust. That word meant everything. Julian trusted her professionally, but more importantly, he trusted her personally. He'd introduced her to his business partners, taking her to networking dinners and industry events. She'd worried about fitting in with wealthy, educated people, but Julian always stayed by her side, making sure she felt included and valued. I met your accountant, one partner had said at a recent dinner. She's brilliant. Where did you find her? She found me, Julian had replied, glancing at Rochelle with warmth in his eyes. Or rather, her daughter found me. Best thing that ever happened to my company. Rochelle found herself smiling more. The constant stress that had defined her life for years was fading. She could afford Amara's school supplies without calculating pennies. She bought groceries without checking her bank balance first. She started a college fund for her daughter. Small luxuries, like new shoes when her old ones wore out instead of when they completely fell apart, became possible. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was emotional. Julian had become woven into the fabric of their daily lives. He attended Amara's school play, sitting beside Rochelle in the audience and cheering louder than anyone when her daughter appeared on stage as a sunflower. He fixed the leaky faucet in Rochelle's bathroom without being asked. He brought donuts on Saturday mornings and helped Amara with her math homework when Rochelle was stuck on a particularly tricky accounting problem for work. He's basically family now, Tasha observed one afternoon. She'd come over for coffee, watching Julian and Amara play board games in the living room. That man adores you both. I know, Rochelle said softly. It's scary sometimes. Caring this much. Why scary? Tasha asked. Because I never want it to end, Rochelle admitted. Because I've built my whole life around not needing anyone and now I need him. Not financially, I mean. Emotionally. Amara and we need him in our lives. And if he left? He's not going anywhere, Tasha said firmly. That man looks at you like you hung the moon. And he looks at Amara like she's the most precious thing on earth. He's not leaving, girl. He's staying. Have you ever been afraid to accept love because you worried it might disappear? Rochelle's journey from fear to trust might remind you that taking emotional risks can lead to beautiful rewards. Don't forget to subscribe and comment below about a time when you took a chance on happiness. What happened? A few weeks later, Julian invited them to a company party. It was a casual celebration for landing a major new client, held at a nice restaurant with the whole team. Rochelle had been to similar events before, but this time felt different. This time, Julian introduced her not just as his accountant but as someone special. This is Rochelle and her daughter Amara, he told people. They're very important to me. Amara, dressed in her favorite green dress, charmed everyone she met. She told Julian's employees about her school projects and her favorite books. Andre swooped her up at one point and carried her around on his shoulders, making her giggle uncontrollably. You've got a good setup here, one of Julian's business partners said to Rochelle. Julian's been different since you came into his life. Happier. More grounded. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I'm just being myself, Rochelle replied. Exactly, the partner said with a knowing smile. That's precisely what he needed. Later, as the party wound down, Julian drove them home. Amara fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from socializing. Julian carried her up to the apartment, laying her gently in bed while Rochelle removed her shoes and pulled the covers up. She's an amazing kid, Julian whispered as they left Amara's room. She is, Rochelle agreed. They moved to the living room and Rochelle made tea. They sat on her worn couch, comfortable in the quiet. Rochelle, Julian said after a moment. I need to tell you something. Her heart jumped. Okay. I love you, he said simply. I love you and Amara. I've been falling for you both since that first night at the restaurant. I know we've been taking things slow and I respect that. But I needed you to know how I feel. You don't have to say anything back. I just needed you to know. Rochelle looked at this man who'd shown up consistently, who'd offered help without strings, who'd made her daughter laugh and made her believe in happiness again. She'd been so afraid for so long. Afraid of needing someone. Afraid of being hurt. afraid of hoping for more than survival. But fear was exhausting. And love, she was learning, was worth the risk. "I love you too," she said, her voice steady and sure. "I love you, Julian Blake. And that terrifies me, but it also makes me happier than I've been in years." Julian reached for her hand, bringing it to his lips and kissing her knuckles gently. "We'll figure it out together. All of it. I promise." They sat together on her couch, hands joined, hearts open, while Amara slept peacefully in the next room. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, something beautiful and lasting was taking root. Love, trust, and hope, all growing together in the space Rochelle had finally allowed to open in her carefully guarded heart. 6 months after that first chaotic night at the restaurant, Julian decided it was time to make things official. Not marriage, not yet, but a clear definition of their relationship. He wanted the world to know that Rochelle Davis was his girlfriend, his partner, his person. More importantly, he wanted her to know that he was all in, completely committed. He planned a special day, coordinating with Tasha to make sure Rochelle had the day off and Amara was free. When he picked them up that Saturday morning, Rochelle was wearing a beautiful red dress, something new she'd bought with her first big paycheck. Amara wore her signature green, bouncing with excitement. "Where are we going?" Amara asked for the 10th time. "It's a surprise," Julian replied with a grin. "A good surprise." He drove them to an amusement park an hour outside the city. Amara squealed with delight when she realized where they were. Mommy, we're going on rides." "Looks like it," Rochelle said, smiling at Julian. "This is wonderful." They spent the day riding roller coasters and eating cotton candy. Julian won Amara a giant stuffed bear at the ring toss game. They took silly photos in a booth, making faces and laughing. At lunch, sitting at a picnic table under bright afternoon sun, Rochelle leaned against Julian's shoulder. "This is perfect," she said softly. "Thank you." "The day's not over yet," Julian replied mysteriously. As evening approached, he led them to the park's Ferris wheel. They climbed into a car, Amara between them, and rose slowly into the air. The city spread out below them, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled. Amara pressed her face against the window, pointing at everything she could see. At the top, the Ferris wheel stopped, as Julian had arranged with the operator. He took Rochelle's hand, looking at her seriously. "I need to ask you something," he said. Rochelle's eyes widened. "Julian?" "Not that," he said quickly, reading her panic. "Not yet. But something important." He took a deep breath. "Rochelle Davis, I know we've been taking things slow. I know you've been careful with your heart, and I respect that. But I want you to know where I stand. I want to be your boyfriend, officially. I want everyone to know that we're together. I want to build a future with you and Amara. So I'm asking, will you be my girlfriend? Will you let me be your partner in all the ways that matter?" Tears filled Rochelle's eyes, but she was smiling. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, Julian. I'd love to be your girlfriend." Amara, who'd been watching the exchange with wide eyes, threw her arms around both of them. "Does this mean Julian's going to be my dad?" "Let's take things one step at a time, sweetie," Rochelle said gently. "But yes, Julian is going to be in our lives for a very long time." "Good," Amara declared. "Because I love him." "I love you too, little one," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. "Both of you. So much." The Ferris wheel started moving again, lowering them back to earth. But emotionally, Rochelle felt like she was flying. She'd said yes. She'd committed. She'd chosen hope over fear. And it felt right in every way that mattered. They drove home as the stars came out, Amara chattering happily about all the rides they'd been on. When Julian dropped them at their apartment, he walked them to the door. "Thank you for saying yes," he said, cupping Rochelle's face gently. "You've made me the happiest man alive." "Thank you for asking," Rochelle replied. "Thank you for being patient with me. For understanding why I needed time." "Always," Julian promised. He kissed her forehead gently, then knelt down to hug Amara. "Good night, princess." "Good night, Julian," Amara said, hugging him tight. "See you tomorrow?" "See you tomorrow," he confirmed. Inside the apartment, Rochelle got Amara ready for bed. As she tucked her daughter in, Amara looked up at her with serious eyes. "Mommy, are you happy I went to that restaurant that night?" Rochelle thought about it, really thought about it. Amara's decision had been risky and dangerous and had scared Rochelle more than anything in her life. But it had also led to Julian. To love. To happiness. To a future that looked bright instead of just survivable. "I'm happy," Rochelle said honestly. "But I also need you to promise me you'll never do something like that again without telling me first." "I promise," Amara said solemnly. But I'm glad I did it once. Because now you have Julian and Julian has us, and we're all happy together. We are, Rochelle agreed, kissing her daughter's forehead. We really are. After Amara fell asleep, Rochelle sat in her living room, looking at the photos from the day. Her and Julian on the roller coaster, mouths open in mid-scream. Amara with her giant stuffed bear. The three of them in the Ferris wheel, a family in everything but legal definition. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Sweet dreams, girlfriend. Rochelle smiled and typed back. Thank you for being worth the chance. Sweet dreams, boyfriend. She went to bed that night feeling complete. Not because a man had validated her or because money had solved all her problems, but because she'd learned to accept love when it was offered genuinely. She'd learned that asking for help wasn't weakness. She'd learned that hope wasn't naive. And she'd learned that sometimes, the bravest thing you could do was simply open your heart and say yes. 3 months into officially dating, Julian had been working on something secret. He'd been in meetings Rochelle didn't attend, had private phone calls he stepped away for, and seemed constantly excited about something he wouldn't share. Rochelle tried not to be curious, but it was difficult. He's planning something big, Andre confided one day at the office. And it involves you. That's all I'm allowed to say. Helpful, Rochelle replied dryly, but she was smiling. The revelation came on a Tuesday evening. Julian had invited Rochelle and Amara to dinner at his apartment, something they'd done regularly. But tonight felt different. There was extra excitement in the air. After they ate, Julian pulled out a folder. I want to show you something. It's a project I've been working on for a while now. Okay, Rochelle said, curious and slightly nervous. Julian opened the folder, revealing architectural drawings and budget spreadsheets. Do you remember a few months ago you mentioned a program you wished existed? Something to help single parents with job training and childcare so they could improve their situations. Rochelle did remember. They'd been talking about her struggles before she'd gotten the job at Blake Technologies. She'd mentioned wishing there was more support for parents like her, people who wanted to better their lives but couldn't afford childcare or training programs. I remember, she said. I've been working with a few nonprofits and city organizations, Julian explained. We're creating exactly that program. The Blake Foundation for Single Parent Success. It will offer free childcare, job training, resume help, interview prep, and small emergency grants. Everything you said should exist. We're making it exist. Rochelle stared at the papers, her heart pounding. Julian, that's amazing. The impact this could have. I want you to run it, Julian said. You'd still keep your position as the company accountant, but I want you to direct this program. You know what parents need because you've been there. You understand the challenges. You'd be perfect. But I don't have any experience running a nonprofit, Rochelle protested weakly. You don't need experience. You need passion and understanding. We'll hire an administrative team to handle the logistics. I want you to be the heart of this program. The person who makes decisions about who gets help and how. The person who ensures it actually serves the people it's meant to serve. Rochelle looked at Amara, who was watching her with bright, proud eyes. She looked at the papers, at this impossible, beautiful dream made real. She looked at Julian, this man who'd taken something she'd mentioned in passing and turned it into reality. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, of course, yes. This is my dream, Julian. How did you know? Because I listened to you, Julian said simply. Because when you talk about helping others, your whole face lights up. Because I wanted to give you something that mattered more than money or things. I wanted to give you purpose and impact. Amara climbed into her mother's lap, wrapping small arms around her neck. You're going to help so many people, Mommy. Just like Julian helped us. We're going to help people together, Rochelle corrected. All of us. The program launched 2 months later. The Blake Foundation for Single Parent Success opened in a bright, welcoming space downtown. Rochelle worked with local organizations to spread the word. The response was overwhelming. Within the first week, they had 50 applications from parents desperate for help. Rochelle interviewed each applicant personally. She heard stories that mirrored her own. Exhaustion, fear, hope, determination. She approved grants that let a mother pay rent while she attended nursing school. She arranged childcare so a father could complete his electrician's apprenticeship. She connected people with job training programs that matched their skills and dreams. You're changing lives, Julian told her one evening as they reviewed the program's first monthly report. We're changing lives, Rochelle corrected. This is your vision too. But your heart, Julian replied. That's what makes it work. The local news ran a story about the program. Rochelle was interviewed, talking about the importance of supporting parents who wanted to improve their situations. "I was there," she told the reporter. "I was the exhausted mom working 2 jobs, trying to give my daughter a good life but barely surviving. Someone offered me a chance and it changed everything. This program is about offering chances. That's all most people need. Just one genuine chance." The story aired and donations poured in. Other companies wanted to partner with the foundation. The program expanded, serving more families. Rochelle hired 2 assistants, both single parents who'd come through the program successfully. They understood the mission personally, which made them perfect for the work. 6 months into the program, Rochelle stood in the foundation's office, looking at the wall where they'd hung photos of every family they'd helped. 50 photos had grown to 200. 200 families with better futures. 200 parents who'd been given a chance. 200 children who'd watched their parents succeed. "This is incredible," Tasha said, visiting the office for the first time. "Girl, you did this." "Julian did this," Rochelle replied. "No," Tasha corrected. "Julian funded it. You made it real. You made it work. You're the reason it matters." That evening, Rochelle came home to find Julian and Amara making dinner together. They'd become a team over the months, comfortable in each other's presence. Amara called him Julian, still not Dad, but the love between them was obvious and deep. "We made spaghetti," Amara announced proudly. "Julian let me stir the sauce." "It smells wonderful," Rochelle said, kissing her daughter's head and then Julian's cheek. "Thank you both." Over dinner, Amara talked about school. She was doing well, thriving under the stability of their new life. Her teacher had commented on how much happier she seemed. "It's because Mommy's happy," Amara explained with the simple wisdom of children. "When Mommy's happy, I'm happy. And Julian makes Mommy happy. So everything is good." Julian reached across the table and took Rochelle's hand. "Is that true? Are you happy?" "I'm so happy," Rochelle said honestly. "Happier than I ever imagined possible. You've given me so much. Not just the job or the foundation, but hope. You've given me hope and love and a future that feels bright. How do I even thank you for that?" "You don't have to thank me," Julian said. "You just have to keep being exactly who you are. That's all I want. Your genuine self. That's always been enough." Rochelle felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to cry a lot these days, but they were good tears. Happy tears. Grateful tears. After so many years of pushing down emotions to survive, she was finally letting herself feel everything fully. "I love you," she said. "I really truly love you." "I love you too," Julian replied. "Both of you. More than anything." They finished dinner and cleaned up together, the 3 of them moving around the kitchen in comfortable synchronization. Later, after Amara was asleep, Rochelle and Julian sat on her couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "I have one more surprise," Julian said quietly. "Julian, no more," Rochelle protested. "You've already given me so much." "This one's small," he promised. "Look in my jacket pocket." Curious, Rochelle reached into the pocket of his blue jacket and pulled out an envelope. Inside were 3 tickets. She read them carefully, then gasped. "Hawaii? You're taking us to Hawaii?" "Next month," Julian confirmed. "Amara's school has that week off. I figured it was time for a real vacation. You've been working so hard with the foundation. You deserve a break." "We've never been on a vacation," Rochelle whispered. "Never. Amara's never seen the ocean." "Then it's time," Julian said simply. "Time to make happy memories. Time to relax. Time to just be a family enjoying life together." A family. He'd said family. Not like a family, or similar to a family. Just family. Because that's what they were becoming. Not through legal documents or marriage certificates, but through choice and love and showing up every single day. Rochelle accepted the tickets with gratitude, with joy, with love so intense it felt like her heart might burst. She'd stopped refusing help. She'd stopped seeing kindness as charity. She'd learned that accepting love didn't make her weak. It made her brave. Julian had been planning the proposal for weeks. He wanted it perfect, meaningful, and inclusive of Amara. The little girl who'd brought them together deserved to be part of the moment that would make them a legal family. He'd bought the ring a month earlier, a beautiful but not ostentatious diamond on a gold band. He'd asked Tasha's advice, wanting to choose something Rochelle would actually wear, not something that screamed wealth. She likes simple and elegant, Tasha had confirmed. Nothing too flashy. Something that feels like her. The plan involved the park where Rochelle used to take Amara when money was tight. Julian had learned about this place through Amara's stories. It was where they'd fed ducks with day-old bread, where they'd played on worn playground equipment, where they'd picnicked on peanut butter sandwiches when restaurant meals were impossible luxuries. It's where we were happiest when everything was hard, Amara had told him once. Mommy would push me on the swings and tell me stories and make me feel like we had everything we needed. Julian wanted to propose there because it represented Rochelle's strength, her love for her daughter, and her ability to create joy even in difficult circumstances. It felt right to ask her to marry him in the place where she'd proven her incredible heart. He recruited Amara as his co-conspirator. "I want to ask your mom to marry me," he told her seriously one afternoon when Rochelle was at a foundation meeting. "But I need your permission first. And your help." Amara's eyes went wide. "You want to marry Mommy?" "Very much," Julian confirmed. "But only if you're okay with it. You're the most important person in her life. If you're not comfortable with this, I won't do it." Amara threw her arms around his neck. Yes. I want you to be my dad officially. I want us to be a real family with the same last name and everything." Julian hugged her back, feeling his eyes get misty. "Then help me plan the perfect proposal." They worked together over the next 2 weeks, scheming like seasoned operatives. Amara helped Julian pick the right picnic foods, the ones Rochelle loved. She helped him choose the perfect spot in the park, under a big oak tree where they'd often sat together. She even helped him practice what to say, offering feedback like a tiny theater director. "More feelings," she instructed during one practice run. "Tell her how she makes you feel. Girls like that." "Where did you learn that?" Julian asked, amused. "TV," Amara replied matter-of-factly. "And Miss Tasha. She told me that Mommy needs to hear how special she is because she doesn't always believe it herself." Smart kid. Smart friend. Julian listened to their advice. The proposal was planned for Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks before their Hawaii trip. Julian told Rochelle he wanted to take them on a casual picnic, nothing fancy. She agreed easily, having no idea what was really coming. On Saturday morning, Julian woke up nervous. He'd run billion-dollar companies, given presentations to thousands of people, made decisions affecting countless lives. But asking one woman to marry him felt more terrifying than all of that combined. Because this mattered more than anything ever had. Andre called to wish him luck. "You've got this, boss. She loves you. She's going to say yes." "But what if she doesn't?" Julian asked, voicing his fear. "Then you'll figure it out together," Andre said confidently. "But trust me, she's going to say yes." Julian picked up Rochelle and Amara at noon. Rochelle wore casual jeans and her red cardigan. Amara wore her green dress, looking suspiciously excited. Rochelle noticed. "What are you two up to?" she asked suspiciously. "Nothing," they said in unison, then looked at each other and giggled. Rochelle narrowed her eyes but smiled. "I don't believe you for a second." They drove to the park, Julian's heart beating faster with every mile. When they arrived, Amara bounded out of the car, running toward the oak tree. Julian carried the picnic basket, trying to look casual while his hands shook slightly. Under the oak tree, he'd arranged for flowers to be set up in a casual circle. Nothing too formal, just beautiful wildflowers that looked natural in the park setting. Rochelle gasped when she saw them. "Julian, what is all this?" "Just a picnic," he said innocently. "A special one." They spread out the blanket and unpacked the food. For a while they just ate and talked like normal. Amara chattered about school, Rochelle shared stories about the Foundation's latest success, and Julian listened, loving every moment of this simple togetherness. As the afternoon sun moved across the sky, casting golden light through the tree branches, Julian decided it was time. He looked at Amara, who nodded encouragingly. He took a deep breath. "Rochelle, can I talk to you about something?" She looked at him curiously. "Of course." Julian took her hands in his. "A year ago I was sitting alone in a restaurant, waiting for a blind date who never showed. I thought it was just another disappointment. Another failed attempt at connection. But then a brave little girl walked up to my table and changed everything." Rochelle glanced at Amara, who was watching with barely contained excitement. "That night," Julian continued, "I met the two most important people in my life. A child with a heart big enough to risk everything for her mother's happiness. And a woman who'd worked herself to exhaustion trying to give that child a good life. I met strength and love and genuine goodness. And I fell completely, irrevocably in love." Tears were already forming in Rochelle's eyes. "You've taught me what real courage looks like. You've shown me that accepting help isn't weakness. You've let me into your life, into your heart, into your small, perfect family. And now I want to make that family official." Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out the ring box. Rochelle's hands flew to her mouth. Rochelle Davis, I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love your strength, your kindness, your fierce dedication to everyone you care about. I love how you always see the best in people. I love how you've built a beautiful life from incredibly difficult circumstances. I want to spend the rest of my life being your partner, your support, your friend, and your love. Will you marry me? Rochelle was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Amara, who nodded enthusiastically. She looked at Julian, at this man who'd proven his love through consistent action, through respect, through showing up every single day. She looked at the ring, simple and elegant and perfect. Yes, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, Julian. I'll marry you. I'd be honored to marry you. Julian slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her close while she cried happy tears into his shoulder. Amara launched herself at both of them, and they fell back onto the blanket in a laughing, crying, joyful heap. We're getting married, Rochelle kept saying like she couldn't quite believe it. We're actually getting married. We are, Julian confirmed, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. We're going to be a family. Officially. Legally. Forever. Forever, Rochelle repeated, trying out the word. It had scared her once. Now it sounded like the most beautiful promise in the world. They stayed in the park until the sun started to set, talking about wedding plans and the future and all the wonderful things to come. Amara talked about being a flower girl, about wearing a special dress, about finally having a dad who was officially hers. Can I call you Dad after the wedding? She asked Julian shyly. Julian's eyes filled with tears. You can call me Dad right now if you want. You don't need a wedding for that. You're already my daughter in every way that matters. Dad, Amara tried out the word then smiled hugely. Dad. I like that. I really like that. That night, after Julian dropped them home with promises to see them tomorrow, Rochelle sat with Amara on the couch. They looked at the ring together, both still in awe of how much their lives had changed in 1 year. Are you happy, Mommy? Amara asked. I'm so happy I can barely believe it's real, Rochelle admitted. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to make sure I'm not dreaming. It's real, Amara assured her. And you deserve it. You deserve all the happiness in the whole world. So do you, baby, Rochelle said, pulling her daughter close. Thank you for being brave that night. Thank you for going to that restaurant even though it was dangerous and I would have been so angry if I'd known beforehand. You saved us, sweetie. You gave us this beautiful life. I just wanted you to be happy, Amara said simply. That's all I ever wanted. Well, mission accomplished, Rochelle said, laughing through fresh tears. I'm the happiest woman alive. They sat together in comfortable silence, looking at the ring, thinking about the future, feeling grateful for the courage it took to open their hearts to love. Tomorrow would bring planning and celebration and telling everyone the good news. But tonight was just for them, mother and daughter, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Outside, the city hummed with evening life. Inside, two hearts beat in sync, full of love and hope and anticipation for all the beautiful tomorrows to come. 6 months after the proposal, Rochelle stood in a small dressing room, looking at herself in a wedding dress. The dress was simple and elegant, ivory-colored with delicate lace details. No train, no veil, nothing overly fancy. Just a beautiful dress that made her feel like herself on the most important day of her life. Tasha stood beside her, wiping tears. Girl, you look stunning. Julian's going to cry when he sees you. I hope not, Rochelle said, laughing nervously. If he cries, I'll cry and then my makeup will run. Too late for that, Tasha said, pointing at the tears already slipping down Rochelle's cheeks. You're already crying. Rochelle laughed and carefully wiped her eyes. Happy tears. These are happy tears. The wedding was being held in the park, under the same oak tree where Julian had proposed. They kept things small, just close friends and family. Rochelle's aunt had flown in from Atlanta. Julian's college friends were there. The Blake Technologies team had come. Some families from the foundation attended, people whose lives had been changed by the program Rochelle ran. Amara appeared in the doorway, wearing a green flower girl dress that matched her beloved color. She looked grown up and beautiful, carefully carrying a basket of flower petals. It's almost time, Mommy, she said seriously. Are you ready? I'm ready, Rochelle confirmed. Are you ready to be a flower girl? I've been practicing, Amara assured her. I'm going to walk slow and steady, and I won't throw all the petals at once like I did at rehearsal. Tasha laughed. That rehearsal was memorable. The music started, the soft acoustic guitar they'd chosen for the processional. Tasha went first, walking down the aisle. Then Amara, carefully dropping pedals like she'd practiced. And finally Rochelle. She walked alone by choice. Her aunt had offered to give her away, but Rochelle had politely declined. "I've been taking care of myself for so long," she'd explained. "I want to walk to Julian under my own power. To show that I'm choosing this, choosing him, choosing us. Does that make sense?" It made perfect sense. So she walked alone, head high, heart full, toward the man waiting for her under the oak tree. Julian wore a blue suit, the same color as the first night they'd met. He looked handsome and nervous and so full of love that Rochelle had to stop halfway down the aisle to collect herself. He smiled at her, that warm, genuine smile that had first broken through her defenses, and she found the strength to keep walking. When she reached him, he took her hands gently. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "Absolutely beautiful." "So are you," she whispered back. The ceremony was short and meaningful. They'd written their own vows, wanting to speak from their hearts rather than recite traditional promises. Julian went first. "Rochelle, a year ago I was waiting for a date who never showed. I thought it was a disaster. But then your daughter walked up to my table, and I realized it wasn't a disaster. It was fate. You've taught me what real strength looks like. You've shown me that vulnerability isn't weakness. You've let me love you and Amara, and that's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. I promise to show up for you, every single day. I promise to listen and support and respect you. I promise to be a good partner to you and a good father to Amara. I promise to build a life with you that's filled with kindness, hope, and love. Always." Rochelle wiped tears, then took a deep breath for her own vows. "Julian, I spent so many years building walls, convinced that needing someone was weakness. Then you appeared in my life, brought by my brave, foolish daughter who refused to accept my fear. You've been patient with me. You've respected my independence while offering support. You've loved my daughter like she's your own. You've helped me build dreams I didn't even know I had. You've taught me that accepting love doesn't make me weak. It makes me brave. I promise to trust you with my heart. I promise to build a life with you filled with joy and laughter and partnership. I promise to remember that we're stronger together than apart. I promise to love you fiercely, honestly, and forever." The officiant, a friend of Julian's, smiled at them both. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Julian pulled Rochelle close and kissed her softly while their small gathering applauded. When they pulled apart, both were crying happy tears. Amara ran up and hugged them both. "You're married," she said, delighted. "You're actually married." "We are," Julian confirmed, lifting her up. "And you're officially my daughter now. How does that feel?" "Perfect," Amara said, hugging his neck tight. "It feels perfect." The reception was held in the same park, with tables set up under string lights. They ate good food, danced to acoustic music, and celebrated love. Rochelle danced with Julian, then with Amara, then with both of them at once. Friends made toasts. Tasha told embarrassing stories about setting up the blind date. Andre revealed that he'd helped Julian plan the proposal. As the evening wound down and the sun started to set, casting orange and pink across the sky, Rochelle found a quiet moment. She stood slightly apart from the celebration, just watching. Her new husband was dancing with Amara, spinning her around while she giggled. Her friends were laughing over cake. The families from the foundation were mingling, forming connections. Everything was bright and beautiful and happy. A year ago, she'd been exhausted and lonely, working herself to the bone just to survive. She'd refused a blind date because she was too scared to hope for more. She'd built walls so high that nothing could get in, not even possibility. Then her daughter had been brave. Amara had climbed out a window, taken a bus across the city, and walked into a restaurant to save her mother from loneliness. It had been dangerous and foolish and the most loving thing anyone had ever done for Rochelle. And it had changed everything. Julian appeared beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Blake?" Rochelle smiled at her new name. She'd chosen to take his, wanting the symbol of their joined family. "I'm thinking about how different everything is. How much has changed." "Good changes?" Julian asked. "The best changes," Rochelle confirmed. She leaned into him, feeling safe and loved and happy. "A year ago, I would have told you that fairy tales don't exist. That happy endings are for other people. That survival was the best I could hope for. And now?" Julian prompted. "Now I know I was wrong," Rochelle said simply. "Fairy tales do exist. Happy endings are real. And love, true love, is possible when you're brave enough to accept it." They stood together, watching their daughter play with flowers, listening to their friends laugh, feeling the warmth of community and connection. The string lights began to glow as twilight deepened. Stars appeared overhead. The world felt full of possibility. "I have something to tell you," Rochelle said suddenly, turning to face Julian fully. He looked at her, curious and slightly concerned. "What is it?" She took his hand and placed it on her stomach, which was still flat but wouldn't be for much longer. "We're going to have a baby. I found out yesterday. I wanted to tell you on our wedding day." Julian's eyes went wide. Then his face split into the biggest smile Rochelle had ever seen. "A baby? We're having a baby?" "We're having a baby," Rochelle confirmed, laughing and crying at the same time. Julian picked her up and spun her around carefully, laughing with pure joy. Oh my God, Rochelle. We're going to have a baby." "What's happening?" Amara ran over, excited by the commotion. Julian knelt down to her level. "Amara, you're going to be a big sister. Your mom is having a baby." Amara's eyes went huge. Then she screamed with delight and threw herself at both of them. "A baby? A real baby? I get to be a big sister?" "You do," Rochelle said, laughing as she hugged her daughter. "You're going to be the best big sister in the whole world." They stood together, the three of them soon to be four, holding each other close as their friends and family noticed the commotion and came over to investigate. When they heard the news, more cheering erupted. Tasha cried. Andre started planning baby showers. Everyone celebrated this new joy, this new beginning, this new chapter in a story that had started with a brave little girl and an empty restaurant table. Later that night, after the celebration ended and guests went home, Julian drove his new family back to the house he'd bought for them. Not a mansion, but a comfortable home with a yard where Amara could play and a nursery that would soon be needed. A home they'd chosen together that felt like theirs in every way. He carried a sleeping Amara inside, still in her green flower girl dress, and tucked her into bed. Then he returned to Rochelle, who stood in their bedroom looking out the window at the stars. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "So happy," Rochelle murmured. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. That I get to have this life. This love. This family." "Believe it," Julian said firmly. "This is real. We're real. And we're going to build an incredible life together. You, me, Amara, and our new baby. A family built on courage and hope and love. The best kind of family." Rochelle turned in his arms, looking up at her husband. Her husband. The man who'd waited in an empty restaurant. The man who'd kept her daughter safe. The man who'd offered opportunity without pity. The man who'd loved her patiently until she was ready to love him back. The man who'd taught her that accepting help was brave, not weak. "I love you," she said simply. "Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for understanding why I needed time. Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me, and loving what you saw. Always," Julian promised. "I'll always see you. I'll always love you. Forever." "Forever," Rochelle agreed, and this time the word held no fear. Just promise, possibility, and endless hope. They stood together in their bedroom, two people who'd found each other through unexpected circumstances, who'd chosen courage over fear, who'd accepted love when it was offered genuinely. Tomorrow would bring new adventures. There would be a baby to prepare for, a foundation to run, a daughter to raise, a life to build together. But tonight was perfect just as it was. Outside, the city hummed with evening activity. Inside, three hearts beat in sync, soon to be four. A family not defined by biology or circumstance but by choice. By love. By the simple, brave decision to open their hearts and trust that good things could happen. And they did. Good things happened every single day. Because that's what happens when kindness, hope, and love lead the way. When courage overcomes fear. When people say yes to possibility instead of hiding behind walls of self-protection. Rochelle had learned that lesson. She'd learned it from a billionaire who'd waited in an empty restaurant. She'd learned it from friends who'd pushed her toward happiness. But mostly she'd learned it from a 6-year-old girl who'd been brave enough to climb out a window and demand that her mother accept joy. That girl slept peacefully down the hall, dreaming of being a big sister, of having a family that felt complete, of a home filled with laughter and love. And in the morning she'd wake up to parents who adored her, to a life that was stable and happy, to a future that looked bright. This was the happy ending Rochelle had never believed possible. This was the fairy tale she'd thought only existed in stories. But it was real. It was hers. And it was everything. Forever had started that night in a restaurant, with an empty chair and a brave little girl. But forever was continuing here, in this home with this family, with this love that would grow and deepen with every passing year. This was the beginning, not the end. The beginning of everything beautiful and good. And Rochelle finally truly believed it.